Greetings, greetings. This is Body-Culinary, and welcome to this workshop on healthy eating for men. So, I decided to provide this because of all the questions that I get from men on my Facebook Live and on social media, and folks ask a lot of questions. Sometimes, to be quite honest, men, I think they may just want to hang around to just look at your face to see an attractive face, and that's not a crime. However, I'd like to make use of social media for something positive. And I do realize there's lots of information that is not being passed down to men. So I'm familiar with both my great-grandmothers and my grandmother, my Caribbean side, that were all in their 90s. And I do remember also my grandpa that was from the South. I do remember men that were aware of certain things in terms of how to take care of themselves. They knew some basic teas. I've been around many men that know how to make food for themselves, to iron, to even sew a button on clothes. So part of what I'm presenting today is really for your benefit. It's wonderful if you have a feminine presence around that you're partnered with or in your family to do these things for you. But as men, keyword is men, it's very important for you to know how to do some of these things for yourself. So I hope you take this information with the greatest of respect and care that it's meant with. If I was sharing this information with my brothers, with my son, which I have, with menfolk in my community, it's meant in the spirit for you to be able to take good care of yourself and to prioritize self-care, and prioritizing this over running into folks, women's DMs, tell us, how wonderful we look. A priority now more than ever is your health. So we're going to be discussing some things. I'm going to be answering some questions, and I'll just qualify myself. I'm a mother. I've been in the holistic health field for going on 3 decades. Professionally trained as a chef. I've worked at a holistic health center, one that's very well known for I think maybe about 3 years, in the early 90s. It was in the early 90s that I first became certified in living foods in a beginner and an advanced level. I've been a certified personal trainer and worked in the fitness field and done fitness competitions and doing fitness and personal training for a couple of decades. Started out in African dance, certified in yoga, done all different types of yoga, familiar with CrossFit, Spartan, I didn't do Spartan race, CrossFit, I can't even think, kettlebell certified, pre-postnatal certified. I've had quite a bit of men clients throughout the years with different types of body types, and quite a few of them had injuries. So that's a quick little intro on me. In addition, I have been a junk food junkie. I grew up eating meat. My family has a lot of obesity and diabetes, as well as I've seen a lot of substance abuse in my community and in the larger community, human community. But I've seen a lot of substance abuse in terms of drugs and alcoholism and how it has really ruined people's lives, as well as it didn't used to be the men so much that were dealing with obesity, but now we see more and more men with a lot of not only adipose tissues, but or fatty tissue around the waistline that is very dangerous, but also we see the complications that go with that. One of the last running patriarchs in my family that has transitioned, my great uncle, he was actually a really big, strapping, fine, slim, healthy man, but he did have his leg amputated from diabetes. So you don't just have to be overweight to suffer with diabetes. So that was really something. So a lot of diabetes in my family, and a lot of it is lifestyle habits. We say a lot of times it's genetic, but it's also the habits are passed down to us. So today I'm going to be offering some things to you. Whatever resonates, use it. Whatever doesn't resonate, toss and keep it moving. Go to where your results are. So I'm going to be focusing on some things for men folk that you can do. You can empower yourself to make sure that you're in optimum health. There are some things that men don't like to discuss, that many people don't discuss, that many cultures don't like to discuss. But not addressing these things doesn't make the issues go away. And just not addressing something, the problem is still there, and it's moving forward while we're ignoring it. So we're going to address what is the impetus for healthy lifestyle habits. Here I'm going to be focusing on plant-based, but I'm not here to dogmatically give you any labels or tell you how to eat. This is just an offering. I do want to start out by saying that actually some of the fittest men I've ever seen, and fit in a whole sense. Most men are concerned with lean mass, but I have seen a living foods vegan. Some people say raw food, but I like to make the distinction with raw to whole living unprocessed foods, right? So it's not about just eating a whole bunch of nuts and cookies and pizzas out of the health food store or expensive raw food restaurants just because it has the flesh removed. So that's one level, but we want to look at the whole picture of your health. And many men are concerned with lean mass, right? Not looking frail, or they may have this image of very frail looking men in terms of, some of the men you may see doing yoga. So there's a science to putting on muscle and maintaining lean mass. I also want to say that the body has a natural intelligence and will fall to a natural weight, and the form will follow the function. So depending on what type of work or workload you're putting on the body, that's going to determine what it is that you see. As well, we want to maintain our health into our mature years, not just have a small pocket of time where we're healthy in our 20s and then we're quickly, going downhill in the late 20s to 30s, which is what we're seeing now. Much more younger men are having issues with their prostate and performance. Thus, we see all the Viagra. So that's for several reasons. So those are some of the things that we're going to go over today. So we want to start right out by saying vegetables and fruits, right? We hear fruits and vegetables all the time. But let's go over some specific things that you can invest in, right? And that you can actually learn how to prepare. It's not too hard, and this is an investment in your own health. I would dare say it's something I really respect, a man that prioritizes his health. I don't need a drinking buddy or a buddy to share vices with, right? That's not going to serve me at this point in my life. And if you set a high standard for how you eat, then the feminine presence in your life will follow suit if you just refuse to eat food that's unhealthy. And it really makes a big deal when fathers prioritize their health. I'm not saying be controlling and forcing things down people's throat, but if you're getting results, that is really what is the most impressive to folks. So we're going to just go over some things that you can find, and I also have some things that I just pulled from my garden to share with you. So fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and legumes, the least harm possible and cruelty-free. So we're not going to focus merely on the label of vegan, which is very easy to do. We have these different camps, vegan, paleo, keto. They don't necessarily speak to the whole picture. You can be any one of these labels and still be very clogged and constipated. Your energy level can still be very low. You may perhaps not be digesting your food properly and efficiently. So you could be chewing up all this food but not absorbing all the nutrients, right? So you're just going to get a basic understanding of these things, but I'm going to give you some things, some visuals and some ideas for some things that you can go out and you can look for at your farmer's market for your own health. So this is really about taking 110% responsibility for your health. Yes, something unforeseen can happen, but we want to be 100% responsible for our health. So we're starting right out the gate with greens. So greens, I like to refer to, over here at Body-Culinary, we refer to greens as money for your body, right? You can't get enough greens. They are so full of B vitamins. B vitamins are very important for your nerves and your nervous system. When you're under a lot of stress, the body has a chemical response to all the different types of stimulus that it's receiving. So there is a chemical response to stress in the body, and we excrete B vitamins, right? B vitamins is something also, if you're considering going plant-based, you'll hear vegans, many people that don't consume animal products or that strive not to consume animal products as a standard are concerned about B12. However, it is a known fact that many of us, whether you eat animal flesh or not, have a B12 deficiency, and that is due to the depletion of the soil, right? So B vitamins that come from the soil, right? Some people think you just get from animal products, but horses and gorillas, they're not taking vitamin B supplements, right? And they're not emaciated, and they're eating mostly grass. So I'm not saying we need to eat grass, that we can digest grass, but there are things, there are rationales really to justify everything. There's a study for everything, you know, from different agendas. So it's very important that you cultivate discernment and common sense, and again, go where your results are, and not hold dogmatically to something when you're not getting your results. So again, take what's useful and leave the rest. So we do know there are huge creatures with lots of muscle mass in the animal kingdom that don't consume animal flesh. And then also there are distinctions between us and these different animals in terms of our teeth, how we're able to digest the food in its whole raw natural state, you know, without violence and fear. Also the digestibility, you know, proteins become denatured when you heat them, right? So we want to get our food first from the first source, just like the animal is getting it from the actual vegetables, also in order not to deal with the cancer-causing effects of all of these roasted and toasted carcasses, right? Things that will encounter rigor mortis. So in terms of parasites, all those things, heavy fats and cholesterol, those are the things we want to avoid. We also know that most chocolate folks throughout the diaspora are very lactose intolerant. So, and there are also many people from the human species right now on the planet are striving to eat cruelty-free, but again, are very concerned about getting enough protein. And I will say, I've never seen a protein deficiency in the United States of America. Perhaps you would find it in a country where the people are being deprived of overall calories, right? And they're literally starving. So, and then also, it's a balance between exercise, right? Form is going to follow your function. If you are exercising and eating enough, you can have quite a nice, toned, natural-looking physique. You won't look all swollen like you're on stage as a bodybuilder, but perhaps more like a gymnast or a capoeirista. All right, so starting right off, we're going to look at some greens. Greens I consider money for your body. Can't get enough. They're extremely nutrient dense, and they have so much nutrition in vitamin A, vitamin C, so much nutrition that wards off cancer. And these are some of the things that I just went out and I picked from the garden. So one, this is curly kale, and they have a little soil in it because I just picked it out of my garden, and I am growing things in bags. I did put together some kits for people that ask what kind of bags I'm using. I've sewn some myself, and then also I've made some other kits available, so everybody can grow something no matter where you are. And if you have questions about that, you can hit me up and send me some messages. Also, if you'd like some coaching. But this is curly kale. There's curly kale. There's also flat kale. I also have purple kale, which is an even tougher texture, and this is very, very high in calcium, again, B vitamins and fiber. So the cellulose, or the plant fiber, something that we can't digest. However, good bacteria, there are different types of good bacteria that live inside the colon, and they proliferate. They like the environment that they can feed off of and grow in the presence of cellulose, right? So if you're eating lots of dried out foods that have been highly processed and that can sit on the shelf indefinitely, a lot of the fiber and the water has been removed, and also they added a lot of cheap salt to it in order for it to have a shelf life. So this is curly kale. Right, also coming out of the garden, and keep in mind these can grow even in cooler temperatures, right? So more to come on that. So this is collard greens. This is an old cultural favorite, right? The collard green, again, it's in the cruciferous vegetable. It's the cruciferous family, and cruciferous vegetables are really good for fighting cancer. So cruciferous, and these are really great for wraps and for salads. So greens, I don't like to think everything is a salad. Some people think everything is a salad, but to me, when I'm eating greens, that's a lot more hearty, right? So collards, these are a staple. Then we also have another green, which is one of my favorites, which is the sweet potato leaf, or the tater leaf. So some are in a heart shape, and this is very, very easy to grow. This is very, very easy to grow. You can even almost consider it kind of like a little bit of a drought resistant. And those pumpkins and squashes and potatoes. Another very, very important green is going to be the dandelion. Now this is considered a wild herb or wild weed, but this is very, very important for cleansing your liver. The cleaning liver is so important. especially if many of us have had habits or we're looking to let go of habits like alcohol, cigarettes, or even eating a lot of flour and processed foods. These things affect the liver. A lot of times you will not burn fat, right? You will not metabolize fat properly if your liver is compromised, right? So the bitter herbs are things that are good for cleaning the blood and cleaning parasites out and little microorganisms out. They do not like bitter. So this is a staple. And as your palate becomes cleaner, you can even enjoy this in your greens or in your salad. So again, I make the distinction between salads and greens. Greens are like those hearty, like a big mess of greens, like maybe around New Year's or on Sunday when your grandma or if your mom, if you're so blessed, to make a big mess of greens, you know, to cook greens. Over here, we're just eating the same thing, but it's going to be only cooked by the sun because we want each meal to be medicine. And we also want the life force or the juice from the fruits and vegetables. So these are just some simple of the greens, and these again are coming right out of my garden. Now let's look at some medicinal things, right? Oregano. Now you can pay for oregano oil, but these are some things also. You know, men farm too. Men can farm too, and these are some things that are great. Now, in terms when we go and talk about hygiene, hygiene is very, very important to your health. Sometimes, you know, your brothers, sometimes women, I'm going to just tell you from a mother's perspective and a woman's perspective, can have sometimes funky feet inside their basketball sneakers. So you can take the oregano leaf, and this is flowering right here, and then after this we'll get some seeds. But I've grown a big bunch from seed, a huge, huge, huge oregano bush, and then I took cuttings off it and started 2 more. But this is a very, very powerful and antifungal. You can take some of the leaf and put it inside of olive oil or coconut oil and use that on your skin. Very good for your feet, for athlete's foot. Also really good for your scalp, right? If you have any kind of dandruff, so a little bit of oil. But this is also good to chew. You can, to go to the store and to pay for oregano oil is very, very expensive. So this is a very, very powerful antifungal and antiviral oil. So you can get it directly from the plant, right? So it can be more self-sufficient, and you have these things growing in your yard. So this is cilantro, and from the same plant. Many of you know cilantro from Mexican food and cuisine. This is very good for pulling heavy metals out of the body. You can make some really nice pestos and sauces with cilantro. Cilantro is very, very easy to grow, and you can let it go through the whole process. Then you can get the seed, which is known as coriander, and that spice is used a lot in Indian cuisine. This is very important for pulling those heavy metals and some of the things that are in the water system out of the body, right? So this is cilantro. It's also very delicious. This is also a variety of oregano, and this is very, very good for respiratory infections. It's also used, it's almost like, to me, it reminds me of like a cross between a sage and an oregano. Some people call it a Cuban mint or oregano, but this I can grow freely here. And you can also make a tea of it for colds. It's good for you to know different things that you can use for colds to treat yourself without all these medications. Our liver really needs a break, right? It needs some basic things that are also good for men to know. If you're in a tropical environment, this is the papaya leaf. So the papaya leaf can be washed. Again, I just pulled this out from outside. It can be chopped up really small. You can chew it bitter and then spit out the leaf, or you can blend it with water and drink it down. Again, this is very antiviral and antiparasitical, right? And these things grow very inexpensively. Then also we have callaloo. Over here, callaloo is very, very inexpensive, and it grows very, very easily. And there's several varieties of callaloo, which is another variety of spinach. In addition to spinach, some other greens would be parsley as a seasoning, and also spinach. So those are your greens. You can't have enough greens. In addition, for men that are concerned about seeing their six-pack, or men that may have more extra weight, cucumbers are very, very important. It's Mother Nature's filtered water, right? So cucumbers are going to be very, very important for you. So hopefully you can replay this and take notes. Cucumber, lots of cucumbers. So not just a couple of slices, 1 or 2 cucumbers or even more. You're a man, right? So it's fantastic. It's not about vanity, but we want both male and female to have healthy skin. Your skin is a good sign of your health. I know I used to have a lot of acne, even though I was eating healthy, because all of the older stuff I ate in my body had to come out. And better that it come out through the skin than turn into a growth. Many women get tumors or cysts. Many men, a good amount, high percentages of men in the 80 percentile get prostate cancer, men of color. So good for you on your own to research your prostate. Where is it? It's definitely going to be impacted if you stay constipated a lot of times. So it's not about you having the runs. It's about you having, not to be gross, but just smooth, easy bowel movements, and that will be reflected by the amount of greens and fresh produce that you're eating. Right? Now, let's talk about protein. Let's talk about protein because many men are concerned about protein. Am I getting enough protein? Will I become emaciated looking? So you don't have to, and I'm saying this as someone that's competed in fitness and, one of the men folk I used to be in a relationship, a committed relationship with, was a professional bodybuilder and, had quite a bit of muscle, and he was big on eating real food. And today, now you can see without steroids, you can see really nice. They're not in the majority, but you can see really nice physiques. So men are concerned about their physiques. You can see a nice physique that is on a living plant-based lifestyle. And so many men may be concerned, right? You have more lean mass than women, that they'll become very skinny. So you want to make sure that you're eating enough. Now, you don't have to eat all of these protein powders. I used to do whey protein, which I found out later is a waste product. And it's not regulated. So you're eating a waste product from the dairy industry. I did rice protein powder, egg white protein powder, vegan, vegetarian, and eventually you don't need it. You really don't need it. You want to make sure you're getting enough protein from the plant kingdom. So what are some types of protein that you can use? One of them is going to be, I'm just going to come over here so you can see, is going to be legumes. So there's a difference between beans and legumes. So I'm pickling some stuff here. So right here you're going to see I have some lentils. These are soaking. And they're going to sprout. And these are very inexpensive. So these I sprouted yesterday, or I put in last night, and these are starting to sprout. So these are one of my favorites, right? Because they're very easy. They're not as gassy as some of the other ones, and they're very easy to digest. Very, very easy to digest. So lentils, I would say, are my absolute favorite. They're inexpensive, and also during this time they're definitely something that you can stock up on inexpensively. You can eat loads of them, and you can use the lentils are very versatile, and you can use them for different dishes. Some other legumes that are really good, black-eyed peas. Black-eyed peas actually can be sprouted, so there are many things people may not realize that you can eat them whole and living. When I say whole and living, either they're dried by the sun or ripened by the sun, or we sprout them and we germinate them in the case of nuts and seeds and legumes. Making sure that you don't want to eat just the dry seed, because then that's like eating rocks, right? And you'll most likely get a lot of gas. So you want to make sure that you started the sprouting process where they'll germinate. So some sprouts or legumes will grow tails, a little tail, a little sprout, and some will not. So you may recognize some of the sprouts from Asian cuisine, right? The mung bean sprouts or soybean sprouts. Those are actually very high in protein if you have the organic edamame or the organic soy, those soy sprouts. If you're concerned about soy, you have the option of mung bean, which are very high in protein, as well as the lentil. And then also very inexpensive and easy to store would be black-eyed peas, which again is a traditional Afro folk food, right? Anybody can eat it, but it's in our tradition throughout the diaspora. So those are very inexpensive sources of protein without the fat. So you can feel free to be versatile and use them in soups, sprouted. I make them into all different types of patties. So I'll be posting soon some recipes that you can do with that. And then also they have the water content, and most importantly, they don't have the cholesterol. They do not have the cholesterol, and they're full of fiber. If you're loading yourself down with all of this this animal product, the animal product doesn't have any fiber, so we don't want your colon to be blocked. Something to consider also is that these are very peaceful foods, right? They're not aggressive foods. They're not going to clog up your arteries and your intestines and your brain, so you can relax more because you're not going to be overly stuffed also with these foods that require so much unnecessary violence. So again, we have the lentils, we have the mung beans and the black-eyed peas. Now, there's some other areas where you can get protein from too, but just be mindful. With the nuts and the seeds, we can have a tendency to do too much nuts and seeds, and ideally they should be sprouted, because if you were to see them in nature, here where I am, I've seen the cashew fruit and tasted the cashew fruit from the tree, and then it's a whole process to remove the cashew actually from the seed, which can actually be a little dangerous because of the resin that's inside of it. But the Brazil nuts are excellent for you, but we don't want to eat bags full of nuts. They can go delicious inside of milks, Brazil nuts, also sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. Walnuts are excellent for men. Walnuts, and you can sprinkle them into a salad, so you don't have to eat a huge handful of nuts. Maybe if you have big man hands, you can have a small handful of nuts and work to get your protein from the legumes category, right? There's also proteins in all fruits and vegetables to greater and lesser degrees, but we want to be dumping so much fat, even if it's healthy fat, into the system. We want the body to be able to produce it, right? So to digest it, so they can pass out the things that it doesn't need as waste. Now, some other sources for protein, a little more fatty, would be coconut. Coconut is an ideal food. So here I have a water coconut over here, and I have several sacks of water coconuts. If you're so blessed to get on a tree and be able to climb one to get your coconuts, that's always a great experience. And then also we have the mature coconut right here. And so both of them have a really wonderful water in it that is very, very high in potassium and nutrients and electrolytes. So this would be the mature coconut that represents the ego with that face right there. And then we also have the green water coconut. So the meats of them, you have the coconuts of different maturities. You have the mature coconut. You have, I call like the jelly coconut that has a very translucent kind of jelly, which is excellent for you. And then you have a coconut that is right in between, where the meat is not too hard, it's not too jelly. It's like right in between. And all of those I can use for different types of dishes. Or if you just want something quick to eat, you can just eat the coconut meat itself. Sometimes I can just cut it up in strips into noodles. So that's what I'm eating for protein. Another source is going to be your avocado or the aguacate. So the avocado with some spices on it, some dulse flakes, which is sea vegetables. So you can use the avocado, you can make guacamoles, and you can pair that, slather that onto some organic, young, sweet corn if that's available, and put it on other dishes. So you can even pair the avocado or the homemade guacamole with the sprouted lentils is another nice combination with a whole mess of greens. Right? So there's so much that you can eat from the plant kingdom that's not going to clog you up. Now, while we're on nuts and seeds and proteins, something very, very important for men is pumpkin seeds. Raw pumpkin seeds, not toasted. The nuts and seeds are going to be more beneficial to you when you're eating them raw, untoasted. Why? Because the oils and the nutrients inside of these fats are very volatile and very sensitive to heat and light. So you can destroy a lot of the nutrition by cooking them. So it's also anti-parasitic, and even more importantly, is loaded with zinc. So in this time of all these respiratory infections, zinc is something you want to be putting in your body, as well as to understand men, when you're in intimate relations with your partner, and when you reach your height, you excrete a lot of zinc. You're depleted of zinc. So the women also, zinc is also important for women, but definitely for men, raw pumpkin seeds should be a staple. Right? So we don't want to forget the raw pumpkin seeds. Also sesame seeds. So sesame seeds also are a staple. I do so much with sesame seeds. I call it the ways of the mothers. But again, I'm sharing this with you. Let's see if I can find some sesame seeds, or that I store them all down in the jars. So I have a big storehouse of jars down here. I'm going to find one of the jars of sesame seeds. So I buy these in bulk. You can get them from a food co-op. I was a member of a really good food co-op. And sometimes you can find them toasted and untoasted, or hulled and unhulled. I like the unhulled, but I also like the hulled and the unhulled, but I prefer them untoasted, right? Because I want all my nutrients intact. So I can make my own tahini, which is a lot less expensive. Also, instead of using nut butter, You can get the ground tahini. Sometimes if you go to the Middle Eastern stores, you can get a good deal on nice big, nice huge jars of like from Beirut. I got some really nice raw stone ground tahini, which is absolutely delicious, and you can use that also in dressings and on vegetables for nice sauces and on your greens instead of using all the oil. So anytime you can get the whole food fat, that's going to be ideal. So the sesame seeds also is a staple. So again, you have your pumpkin seeds or your pepitas, right? You have your sesame seeds. Sunflower seeds are also great to sprinkle inside of your salads. You can also have these as nut butters, but I usually prefer for you to eat the whole food and buy them in bulk, which is going to make your shopping list go down. And then also, if you're sharing your food, you know, with your children, and for everybody's eating all this whole fresh food, that's better because everybody's on the same page, right? Some other things that you may be amazed that you can eat fresh, whole, and living are going to be sweet potatoes and butternut squash, right? So we're used to eating them roasted and toasted. So over here we're eating them live, but you have the option to do whatever it is that you feel you need to do with yourself. But the goal is to eat the food as unprocessed as possible because we want the living water and the life force energy from the foods. And we also want these foods, you know, with all that life force, they can be very cleansing and push old waste out of the body. So again, that's part of the rationale for eating whole living unprocessed foods. Also at a cellular level, they help to ward off cancer, right, and bugaboos inside of the body. So sweet potatoes, there are lots of different things. You can make your own sweet potato chips with a dryer, as well as butternut squash. So if you have a really good blender like a Vitamix, there's so much you can do to manipulate the textures and the flavors. So that may be new for many of you. Also, you can simply take a grater, right, and make slaws with them and then put your avocado on it and make a nice little wrap. So I would make these nice big thick wraps with the collards, you know, for my son instead of using bread. So for you men folk that really want to see your abdominal section and see your rectus abdominis, right, even though there's several groups of muscles, your rectus abdominis, your internal, external obliques, right, and your transverse. If you want to see all those muscles you've been working on, you want the body to burn off and metabolize the old adipose extra fat, that extra fuel tank that's there from food that you haven't digested or metabolized. So that is part of what the living, whole, unprocessed foods will do for you, right? They're also very youthening foods, right? So it is a different, your palate will change over time. You can spice it up. We don't want to put chemical spices on the food, but there's more than enough to eat. But it is definitely, I will tell you, a paradigm shift. And even if your body does drop weight initially, you will balance out, right? Because the body's not cleansing and building at the same time. The body works in cycles, but your body has an intelligence and it knows how to fall to a natural weight. You just want to make sure you're eating enough so you can eat until you're satiated. Make sure you're sleeping because that's when growth hormone is secreted, and making sure that you have your fitness component is on point, even if you don't have a gym membership. So we're going to talk and go over that more. Now, some grains that you can eat that are gluten-free. Many people have gluten sensitivities. Many people have celiac, where they have an autoimmune response to wheat. So there are a few options that you have here, and one of them is going to be buckwheat. Now, buckwheat is actually not wheat, right? So people that have an allergy to celiac can have buckwheat. So let me see if I have some buckwheat here, which I'm sure I do because I keep all of these things because I shop in bulk, and I keep all of these things on fleek. I keep them all on deck. So this is going to be your buckwheat, right? This is not a wheat. And I used to like grape nuts back in the day. You can do a lot with this. You can make your own flour. You can put it on top of your shakes for something crunchy. Again, this is really, really nice if you want to make buckwheat pancakes and stuff like this. But this is not a wheat. It's very, very different. So yeah, this is also, some cultures toast this and call this kasha, but this is not toasted kasha. So this would just be the same grain, but it's untoasted, and you can get it in bulk from the health food store or from your food co-op, your local food co-op. The other thing is going to be black wild rice and quinoa. So those are some other options for things. These are things that you can actually sprout and put loads of vegetables in with them. And you can also manipulate the grain and do other things with them. Again, we want the whole living food, the life force energy inside the food. So those are some ideas for some grains, some simple things, right? Some other things to consider. So we did go over the seeds, the pumpkin, the walnuts, the sunflower seeds, and the Brazil nuts, which are very high in selenium. Just even 1 or 2 of those a day, and they're absolutely delicious. Some other foods we want to consider are sea vegetables, right? So sea vegetables would be things like kelp and dulse. You can buy those, and wakame. They're actually, if you like sushi, you know, the nori that it's wrapped in. I usually like Little Korea because they have some of the best raw nori, and a lot of Japanese folks also get their nori from the Koreans, right? So all cultures have their specialties. So when you taste it untoasted, the first time I tasted it, I didn't like it. I was so used to the toasted flavor of nori for sushi, and I am making my own sushi with different vegetables and cabbages and things like that. But I get a really nice, almost sweet, crispy version of it that is totally untoasted when I go to Little Korea. And the sea vegetables are very, very high in minerals, right? So the sea vegetables are important. So dulse, wakame, and kelp, you can buy them ground, or you can grind them yourself. I really like the dulse flakes, are actually delicious on top of your soups or on top of your sweet potatoes. And also in there, very nutritive, is sea moss. Sea moss is something you may be familiar with if you're from the Caribbean, or you have folks from the Caribbean, but you can also find it around where there's sea, right? Around Ireland, around the Caribbean, around Scotland, all those areas have sea vegetables, and it's really, really important now. Also, more incentive not to throw plastic into the ocean. The sea vegetables, many of us focus on the vitamin, but the amount of nutrients and the minerals are what we're really, really lacking. And that's why I'm so passionate about working with the food, because when you're working with the whole ingredients, you really start to get like, hey, I don't need to destroy the ocean because I need my minerals from there for my brain and my thyroid and my different glands and organs to be working properly, instead of trying to take Viagra and all these different things. Exercise, abstinence, not overusing your organs, right? Taking good care of your organs, the hygiene, also healthy eating is hygiene, and then also the minerals. Minerals are extremely important. So sea moss is definitely a staple. If you can get the darker varieties, and they'll come sometimes look like they have a lot of salt on them, but that's good. So you'll give it a good rinse and soak it, and then you can blend that to put that into your smoothies. I use it in all different types of recipes. So sea moss is definitely a staple. So you getting this, men folks, these are things that you can have for yourself to make sure you raise the bar and that you're nice and healthy. So let's talk about some other things now. We can focus on the foods that we have in, but there's some things that it would be beneficial to us to leave out. A lot of times we add a whole bunch of expensive supplements or add health food, and then we have to work with all the other habits, some of the vices we don't want to let go. So some things that will be real big drainers to your health and your energy and your vitality will be cigarettes. Goes without saying, even all this respiratory infection that's happening now, one of the main recommendations is not to be dehydrated, right? Smoke, dehydration, and not to smoke. Right? Not to smoke. That will change your whole palate. You won't really be able to taste the food. It's also well known that it's very, very destructive. So many of us, in trying to fit in our younger years, do what we think is cool, but it's one of the most destructive things you can do to your body. It doesn't smell good. It's on your clothes. It's on your under your nails. It's just one of the most unhealthy habits you can have, and it will rob you of your vitality. And who wants to be pulling an oxygen tank? Right? You won't even be able to get from here to there. And another good recommendation to help you with the smoking is get out there and start doing some physical activity, because then you'll start to see how much you need your lungs to breathe, right? So smoking, also alcohol in all kinds over here. I don't recommend it because of the implications for the liver. And then also, if we think many people as a collective and individually have been traumatized. So although over the years I've heard a lot of people speak of what they call social drinking, it's rare that you find somebody drinking socially, because there's a fine line between social drinking and addiction. And as we see so much drunk driving, so much alcoholism, people usually have had some kind of trauma are wide open for addiction, to be quite honest, and to be manipulated. So it's very easy for people to be manipulated, or for us to allow ourselves to be manipulated through vices, through our vices. These are expensive habits. You could perhaps be, and let's move into some other activities, right? So some things we want to leave out is the alcohol and the cigarettes. Also, some folks who I admire as menfolk who don't smoke weed, and I'm not telling folks what to do, but Professor I, who is Rasta, by the way, and Aris Latham. So they're very spoken out. They're very clear on their position on smoking, right? Any kind of smoke in the lungs. And I'm surprised that more people are not doing the teas. But I do get many people are trying to take the edge off. So again, just my humble perspective and observation, if it was really about healing, most people would be focusing on changing their food and using the plant as medicine and not taking the smoke into the lungs and having a need to get high artificially all the time, where it would be, may perhaps be more satisfying to figure out honorable economics, right? And a system of using the teas and physical exercise, you know, and other things like that, where we basically remove the need to medicate, right? So if we remove the need to medicate and get high off of life, then that won't be so necessary. And there are other areas that we can move into. In addition to the fact that when you take in any kind of a depressant, it can affect and will likely affect a man's virility, right? His, basically his virility, because you're taking a depressant. And anything that compromises your motor skills, your ability to walk down the street properly and to be energetic, you know. So you're going to look at that. So if you're going to take that, it's recommended that you take the tea. And there's so many other things in the plant kingdom that we don't focus on that one particular herb. You know, Mother Nature has given us so much. So some areas that we want to be mindful to leave out because they're expensive and toxic is alcohol, cigarettes, and all narcotics. Is just one of the most unhealthy, dangerous things that you can do. And it's so much more for you to do. So some other things that we would like to focus on in terms of health, right? And let's look at for men. You have your teenage years, your young adult in your 20s, adult in your 30s, starting to mature in your 40s, mature, starting to get seasoned in your 50s, and then you're more mature going to elder years in your 60s. So do you want to just have a small pocket of time, your late teens to your 20s, that you're healthy and virile, and then you start to go in a rapid decline? Because that's what we're seeing more now. We have young men that are dealing with impotence. A lot of it is because of overuse, and popular culture really encourages, and I'm not coming from a cult or a religious standpoint, but just basic observation. The popular culture encourages men, you know, like your masculinity is built off of you overextending yourself. But your life force and your life energy is depleted every time you reach your height or you reach a climax. You're depleting physically nutrients. You're just losing a lot of energy. So the movies that you're watching and the music really pushes you and encourages you to really expend your life force and really just waste it. So that's really something for you to consider. Because then if you abuse or misuse and don't value those things and you stick them in any kind of orifice, it's going to take a definite toll on your health. So the fruits and vegetables are big for your hygiene, right? There are movements around with this no FAP. You know, you can look into that because, again, I'm not a male. But I could just tell you basically, you know, and it's obvious, I think many of you men will know, to overuse and over-excrete yourself and overextend yourself because out of boredom, you know, it says a lot, you know. So hopefully everyone is on a trajectory of maturity and getting the best use out of your years of vitality, right? That you don't waste it and that you're not creating more stress in your life by using your jewels and your male pieces, your organs indiscriminately and irresponsibly. That will cause you years of stress economically, psychologically, emotionally, and so on, right? And, you know, we want to bring forth more children and spirits that are planned for and that are wanted, right? So hygiene is definitely going to be the fruits and the vegetables. Let's also touch on exercise, because the food on its own is not going to cut it, right? It's a balance. The body really needs movement. So we're moving a fraction today of what we need to move. And even if you don't have a gym membership, your calisthenics, getting out in the fresh air. You know, there are a lot of things in life you can't control, but one thing we do have control over is our health and exercise. So getting out and walking on hills, building yourself up. If you've been deconditioned for a long time, we're just starting to walk hills to get your cardiovascular on. Tai Chi. And then also forms of slow martial arts that can be sped up. One of my personal favorites is capoeira. So there's capoeira Angola. and capoeira regional, and there's also macule. But the capoeira I love because it's a lot of gymnastics, acrobatics, and also you get to really sweat and extend yourself. That's really necessary for a lot of us to play. And so I'm sure that could really help us to relate to each other in another kind of way if we get to play. So look up capoeira. I have my recommendations if you'd like to know who I like. I like, let's say, how do I say, Reos de Brazil in Brooklyn, Master Foca, and Anna. It's a wonderful martial arts skill, and find a dojo or something. But I really like the sense of community, and also you use a lot of your own body weight. It's a lot of dynamic flexibility, and you don't need a bunch of equipment, and also you got some nice music at the same time. This is one of my favorite all-time workouts. In addition to putting on some good positive lyrics, or lyrics that get you amped, to train in your home. So, you know, just basic exercise, squats, push-ups, stretching, reverse push-ups and rows and bands. There's so much that you can do at home in terms of fitness to make it a priority. So, you know, as a man, do you really want to give yourself excuses, you know, of laziness? You know, no, I don't think so. So all of these things are going to affect your immune system as well as your virility, right? Instead of you being impotent, you being having a lot of virility, right, and vitality, which you want to treasure it, right, and not waste it. Also, if you put all of this time and energy into keeping your body clean and keeping your mind clean, is for a purpose, right? So you have more energy when you're not focusing, and you don't have to focus and backtrack on your health to think about your life purpose. So that's in terms of generating honorable economics. Some areas to look into would be coding, if you're interested in computers, right? These are, and I'm just telling you this as a woman with some foresight, just my own perspective. Coding, going into agriculture, a lot of these foods that I'm recommending, chia seeds and flax seeds. These are industries that we can be looking into. Coconut, which we're eating for meat. Coconut production, if you're traveling to the Caribbean or to Africa, to start to form some relationships with folks in terms of food and food production. So these are some areas for us to think about in terms of honorable economics and to start to think more. And so I will say this about a lifestyle and a mentality of consuming whole, fresh living, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, least harm possible and cruelty-free, right? Maybe some bugs are going to get squashed somewhere, so we want to use our common sense. Only if you were going to be violent, and anger has a place, only in self-defense of you and your family and the women and children, you know, around you. Other than that, just being cruelty-free. Agreements. This whole thing is a mindset. It's a mindset, not a cult, not a religion. It's the most common sense thing to take excellent care of yourself, right? Love is a verb, and we can't wait. Women can't wait for men to do it, and men, you can't wait on women to do it, because nobody is here just to serve us like that. We have to earn the right to be in each other's company and take care of ourselves first, instead of just expecting someone else to do it for us, right? So when you refuse to put substances masquerading as food in your body, again, when you refuse to put substances masquerading as food into your body, right? Things that are going to compromise your organs and your immune system, that's an agreement with yourself. That's a standard. So when you have that premise and that standard, a lot of your other decision making will be on that same trajectory, right? If you're willing to overlook a lot of things that are toxic and put it into your body because it's entertainment, then more than likely you will have that same mindset, and that will be seen in other areas of your life. So it's all about agreements. When you agree to things that don't make sense, that's a mindset. So this way of eating, when you start to really prioritize your health, you start to come up with more solutions, right? And that's one of the reasons that we're eating. It's not just for vanity. It is also for the brain. It is definitely for your brain. Then also, if you take all this time and care into yourself, you're not going to want to stick and enter so randomly because you care about yourself and expose yourself to STDs, or to put yourself in harm's way, you know, for excitement, as if, you know, STDs are not exciting, or to be in denial about the repercussions, you know, of your actions, right? So maintaining muscle on a plant-based lifestyle. So you can eat lots of, again, there's protein in all of these greens and vegetables that is ideal for human consumption, as well as the legumes, definitely my go-tos would be the coconut and the coconut meat. When I was also training and doing fitness competitions, the bodybuilders will all take MCT oil, like medium chain triglycerides. So I've always had this thing about finding the original source for where all these supplements are coming from. Because it wouldn't make sense, I think like my grandma Lou, wouldn't it make sense to get the food from the direct source? So that is coming out of the coconut. Excuse me. These are some of the best fats for the brain, for your brain. To ward off Alzheimer's. I've had clients that will be downing spoonful of coconut oil. And I was thinking, this is interesting. In the Caribbean, we already have the whole coconut with the whole food source, with the carbohydrate, the water, the meat, everything, the fiber is already intact, right? In both of these coconuts. So this is an ideal food rather than eating it in an extracted form. Right, so the coconut is one of my main meats. And if you're eating sufficient calories and you are training intensely and smart, right, to stay injury free, not going in with the ego, because the ego will take out the host, and you don't want to go in there and rip your rotator cuff muscles, right? You don't want to rip the rotator cuff or destroy your lower back, just to say you can lift the weight. So you want to exercise smart, right? So we can talk more about that in another video, but you can definitely maintain. I've seen really wonderful physiques, but the person was very active. They were not sitting around all day in front of the TV. They were able to climb, coconut tree. It wasn't even so much they were doing a workout. They were playing lots of basketball, but they were very, very physically active. So you want to find ways to be physically active. I've had one client, her husband would do 100 push-ups every day. So, I mean, it's simple. Men, you have more lean mass than women, so it's not hard for you to get lean. But if your midsection is coming out like you have 2 or 3 babies in your tummy, it's telling you have a lot of waste and that your organs are very distended due to your habits, right? And that the things that you're eating are not being metabolized and they're not exiting the body. So one of the things we're focusing on here is planning also into your future, right? Eating from the plant kingdom and queendom, all the different colors. I like to say the red, the gold, and the green. This is also health insurance. Your Vitamix. This is your health insurance. My grandmother, my 2 great grandmothers, and one of my grandmothers on the Caribbean side, they were all in their 90s, well functioning with all their common sense. I watched them rock their natural hair, and their skin. They weren't big on chemicals. They were just simple, natural women. They were big on eating their own food. So I invite you to, get on the ball in terms of what it takes to take care of yourself, and then perhaps sharing that lifestyle with the partner or the women in your life, so that everybody's on the same page. Just like you may come across halal and kosher, and they have these standards. So I am really looking forward to continuing to support a new narrative around this standard for the food that chocolate people that we take in, that it's cruelty free, that it can give us everything that we need from the plant kingdom. It's right there inside Mother Nature. So again, we're looking from teenage. Think about it: teenage, young adults. You have teenage, 20s, 30s adult, mature adult, 40s, starting to mature and get seasoned in your 50s, and then you're going into your senior years. So if you're going to a financial planner, they would ask you, what do you need your body to be able to do for you in the coming years, right? So I think some of us, due to trauma, can be very short-sighted about our bodies and think they'll always be there for us forever, and that they can take all kinds of abuse. And it really can't. Whatever you're doing to the body is going to show up. Even if you have more lean mass, it's going to show up eventually. You could be skinny, and one day you can have diabetes, or you can start to put on a lot of weight in your midsection. Men have a tendency to put on weight in their chest and also in their stomach. Women will put it more on, in our thighs, our arms, and our stomach, right? So you just want to be cognizant of these things, and I encourage you to take 110% responsibility for your health, right? And not waiting for anybody, any permission or any validation. You can eat cruelty-free and plant-based and have a physique. If you're also consistent with a vigorous, joyous movement practice, aka exercise and calisthenics, which you can do even in a very small space. If you have questions about that, or if you're interested, yes, I am a woman, and I'm a female trainer. I don't have any testosterone. I love being a woman, but I have trained plenty of men as a professional trainer for yeah, going on a couple of decades, right? So do hit me up or send an email if you're interested in more information, and if you're interested in more courses like this. If you have questions, please feel free to replay this and take your notebook and take some notes, right? Do be mindful that you can start, yes, men, you can start a garden, right? And once you start it, right, then that's something you can also share with your partner. And I'm going to close with this. I will say, as a woman, there's nothing more attractive than a man that prioritizes his health, that has his priorities in order, a man that is very responsible with his organs, that doesn't use them indiscriminately. That's something that stands out, that has a discipline, right? If he has a discipline there, hopefully and likely he'll have a financial kind of discipline, right, that takes care of his responsibilities. So I like to liken at this point responsibility to spirituality, right? That's very spiritual, because we can be talking all the rhetoric, but if you're irresponsible, you know, it's not really saying anything, right? Also, as a woman, again, I thank you for your respect. There's nothing more attractive than a man that is respectful, that is healthy, that takes care of his children, that's responsible with his organs, that has some vision and some sight, some insight for what he would like to do in terms of, you know, a contribution to his community, that is forecasting what he wants to do with honorable economics, that is resourceful and using the gifts and the resources that are available to him, a man that has a proactive mentality rather than a victim mentality. So I will say this. The type of, if I was going out on a date or to spend time, intimate time, I would like nothing more than, you know, to go to like one of these races, or to do something physical, or to go rock climbing. The type of gifts that I like are things for the garden. I do like land, organic blueberries and things like that. I don't want an eating buddy to sit with and get high, or to get food drunk with. It's not attractive, right? I don't want to push somebody around and I'm in a wheelchair. You know, things will happen, but I want to know that the person that I'm spending time with really values themselves and their health. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. So if you want to attract somebody that's beautiful and healthy, that looks good without makeup on, you know, that beautifies, you know, herself, but it looks good and healthy without makeup on, that you could trust to raise your children, or, you know, be on point in an emergency, then that's something that you want to be, you know. And I encourage us to take the time to spend with ourselves. You know, there's such a lack of intimacy today. There's a lack of intimacy. There's a lack of respect. There's a lack of healthy boundaries. We've known for a while that there's a lot of violation of women and children sexually. It has become more clear that there's also, it's like a vampire bite. It keeps spreading. People keep spreading it. That also many men have been violated and traumatized. So it's also your responsibility to seek out things like talk therapy or safe spaces. I can think right now there's starting to be more of a movement of men folks doing yoga, of men folks having drum circles, you know, because I like the djembe and African drum, things where you can release stress. You know, again, your dojos or your capoeira community, so you have something physical to release that stress. More people are coming out of the church to do things that are more functional. You know, so just to be sitting up in the church, nothing against church, but if you're sitting there all day praying, listening, but you're not being proactive around an activity, you know, there's nothing more attractive than a man that can think for himself, and that is not a blind follower, somebody is responsible for their life, right, and is forecasting the future, and that wants to share that with someone. So hopefully this video is helpful to you. Please share it with another man or young man, so that you can be more proactive. So this is coming from the perspective of a woman, a mother, someone that has been in partnership with a beautiful man, not a perfect man, but a man that's been working on himself. And there were so many qualities about him that I'm glad that I chose. But you know, what do you want to attract? You want to be healthy to attract that. So there's nothing more. No matter what these popular music things say, there's nothing more attractive than a man that is healthy and responsible and carries himself with some dignity, and carries women and cherishes women the same, right? Women we appreciate, we're complementary, right? So we like leadership, but not control, right? We're complementary to each other. We don't need to control each other. So hopefully this is valuable to you. Recommend it, and I will see you